So to be honest, I'm getting really annoyed at all these people on the news and on social media like TikTok and Instagram and all these people going, housing market crash is coming, blah! And they're just trying to freak people out. And the whole reason is because they want clickbait, they want you to click, they want you to subscribe so that they can make more money. That's the only reason. Their sources aren't great, and they're trying to exclude certain data so that way they don't actually look at it. So we're going to talk through some different things today, and I'm going to give you some sources so that way you guys know where this stuff is coming from. What's up, everybody? So today we're talking through the housing market crash that is supposedly coming. So I'm going to be giving some sources today and just some information so that way we can kind of see what's going on. Before we get into that, if you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it. There's a button right here that you could click. I'd appreciate that. Just trying to be a resource, not trying to be famous, just trying to give good information. So let's get into it. Biggest thing right now is that there's just so many people in the news and social media just saying all of this stuff, and they're saying it again to make money. So let's look at some actual data. I'm going to do a screencast today. I'm going to talk through some different things. So the first parts of information that I'm going to be going over today is from the Brian Buffini show, or the former Brian Buffini show. Now it's called The Good Life. And it's Brian Buffini is a real estate guy, but he does a business podcast. He talks about real estate every now and then, but he does like a forecast. So they went over this stuff. This is from the CEO or the former president and CEO of Mortgage Bankers Association. So what this shows is that almost 40%, yes, 40%, I've seen some that are just over 40%, show that around 40% of people own their home outright, have no mortgage in the United States. That's a lot. But then not only that, another 30%, I've seen some that are like 30, 31%. So around 30% have 50% or more equity in their homes. That's almost 70% right there of home owners in the United States. That's a lot. It's a lot of equity. Now people go, oh, well, some people had that in 08, 09 too. These numbers actually weren't as high in 08, 09. I believe I looked at like the homes free and clear. I think it was just under 30%. And then it was hard to find the other one. I do know that homes had equity back then because I know I was looking at the trajectory of the market before it crashed and went down. So, and a lot of people say, well, we had a really high market before, 08, 09 happened. And you're right. But the problem is there was different lending circumstances back then. So again, I've done this in other videos. There were subprime mortgages. I'm not going to break that down. You can go look at my other videos. But the subprime mortgages is a lot of the reason why things got sunk. People couldn't afford their homes anymore. Lots of people lost their jobs. It was the Great Recession. And with that Great Recession, we haven't actually had that many recessions like that where we've actually seen the housing market just crumble, just crash. And that's the thing is people use crash when really there's been a good amount of corrections throughout history. We've had corrections where you see it dip. The terminology I use is once you see more than 20% equity lost, that's a crash. That to me is what a crash is. Lots of people have different, definitions, and that's fine. But it's one of those that for me, we haven't seen a lot of 20% or more equity crashes in history. To me, there's only two. The Great Depression and then the one we had in 08, 09. So it's one of those that for me, when I look at all of that, it's like, okay, we don't have the same lending circumstances right now. Right now, you have to qualify for all of this stuff. Now, could the government screw all that up? Sure, they could. You could always leave it to the government to screw it up. But it's one of those that people right now are just seeing, man, housing prices went way up in the past 2 years. And they're right, they did. And is affordability at an all-time low? Sure it is. And there's another video I'll share. There's like a guy that is a tax guy that I've been watching, gives lots of resources for numbers, and he's really good with it. So I'll put that in the description below. You can watch it. So from his video, he actually shares and he's right. Real estate is all about local rather than national. You can't really talk on a national scale because there are parts of the country that maybe are dying that businesses have moved out of, and so yeah, real estate's going to suffer, right? So like I'm here in Phoenix, we have tons of businesses coming here. But the one thing that he points out with it being local and not national is it's all about supply and demand. Real estate is all about supply and demand. Here in Phoenix, we have low supply. All right, we do. And so the problem is as interest rates and they give these companies that are all talking about, there's major Fortune 500 companies that are talking about it. Goldman Sachs, I know NAR, which is National Association of Realtors, Fannie, Freddie Mac. They're all expecting next year for us to be in the 5% for interest rates because inflation's being cut down, and if that shows that at a steady level, then they'll stop increasing the interest rates as much. And so that will start bringing interest rates down. So if that happens, there's a lot of pent-up demand for people to come back in the market. There's a lot of people waiting. So it's one of those that we don't really have a crash on our hands here. A lot of people are just trying to use certain data and not all of it. So again, I would encourage you to watch the other two videos. They're really helpful. One other thing I'll show you, and this is just because a lot of people say, oh, foreclosures, and they call them delinquency rates. You know, at what rate are people not meeting their loans and different things like that. So back in 08, 09, 2010, it was almost 12%, 11.5%. Right now, we are at 1.74%. Now, obviously, that can go up and down, obviously. But we're like, people are going, it's going up. We're below pre-pandemic rates right now. Because a lot of people have 2 or 3% mortgages. They have a lot of equity in their home. They could sell their home if they needed to. We'll probably have a small recession or a recession coming up. And people may lose their jobs, but they may sell their homes. And maybe that helps balance the market. But unless it's just tons and tons of people, because when we had the subprime mortgage stuff happen, lots of people couldn't afford their homes because their interest rates jumped way up and they were variable. So we don't have that issue with the loans right now. Yes, they're high, but people are going to refinance next year and the year after that. And so we're going to see a lot of different things like that. And the other thing I always point out too is people are always like, well, home prices are really high. And in Phoenix, they are. But so is rent. I just had a client tell me their rent for a 2-bedroom apartment was $2,500. That's practically a mortgage. So we're going to see a lot of people come back in the market. I know there's a stat I did a short on that there's a ton of people who rent. I think it's like 100 million people in the United States, but there's at least 3 million people in the United States that are renting that make $150,000 a year as a household. That's a lot. Those people are going to come back in the market. So the biggest thing I'm telling people is, listen, there's a lot of demand. I was going to show you one other source here, forgot, about delinquency rates. This is from the Federal Reserve. They're right on track too, 1.72. They actually show credit cards, which is at 2.77, because I know that's a concern for a lot of people, is that there is a lot of credit card debt right now. So that might get some people in trouble, but it's not necessarily an equivalent. So I'm trying to help show some different sources. There's lots of different companies out here who are doing sources, and they're not all on social media trying to do that stuff, right? They're companies that provide data. So it's one of those that you can look at. A lot of these. National Association of Realtors got stuff. I know, like I had some earlier, Goldman Sachs came out and said some stuff. Lots of people are giving different information bits on this because we don't have the same circumstances that we have back in 08, 09. And that's the thing that like the Brian Buffini went over, like we don't have the same circumstances. Now, could there be a correction in the future? Sure, there could be. But, right now in Phoenix, we have low supply and high demand, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. If interest rates go down, it's going to be even higher demand. So we have a lot of people moving here a year. I think they estimated about 50,000 people moving here a year. So, and we're just not building houses fast enough. We're not building houses fast enough in a lot of the country where there's high demand. And so that's going to be part of the problem. So I hope that gave some more information. If you have questions about should I buy, should I sell, I would love to have that conversation with you. It's not the same answer for everybody. It's not. It's one of those that you have to go by your circumstance, what you've got going on. Is it the right decision for you? I would love to have that conversation. Hope to talk to you soon about it. Guys, you've been listening to The Real.